Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Perez coming to you from Baltimore. In our first segment on President Obama's executive order for immigration reform in this country and the most recent action today by a judge in Texas on behalf of 26 states that have halted the executive order through a court. We're talking about that at this moment with Cesar Vargas. So now joining me to continue our discussion is Cesar Vargas, is joining me from New York City. And Mr. Vargas is co-director of the Dream Action Coalition. He co-founded the organization after realizing that despite his qualification to practice law in New York, he couldn't do so because of his illegal immigrant status. Thank you again for joining us, Cesar.
Thank you.
So, Cesar, one curious thing is that the Latin American community in the United States overwhelmingly supported President Obama's presidency during the campaign, and many people felt that he was going to be more positive and a big immigration reformer and will act on their behalf. But in the last 6 years of his presidency, he actually has not delivered on that promise, his first campaign promise in 2008. And now leading up to another campaign coming up in 2016 for the Democrats, immigration is back on the table. I'm wondering how the Latin American community, and particularly the Dreamers Coalition, is receiving this.
You know, I think for us in 2012, 2008, we were definitely hopeful from the president. Unfortunately, it took him almost the end of his term to actually take some action. It was unfortunate that he waited for a Congress that didn't want to work with him. It was very clear that Republicans, especially many of the extreme right, did not want to work with him, and that prevented from moderate Republicans from working with the president. So I think for us, it was very important for us to keep immigration a central issue, not just in 2008, but in 2012. We really pretty much confronted Mitt Romney, the GOP presidential candidate, to remind him that it's not okay to say that you're going to veto the DREAM Act. The Latino community, especially Latino electorate and the Asian electorate and the independent electorate, we're not going to tolerate a candidate who was going to be anti-immigrant, who was opposed to modernize our immigration system. So I think at this point, we are going to continue to make that an issue in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, with Jeb Bush.
And what sort of action might you bring about to really get their focus on this attention? Now, we know that the Republicans are at this point fighting it, and you said Jeb Bush has added his voice through Facebook and Twitter in the previous segment. But, in the past, the Republicans have all relied on immigration, and particularly the Latino community in the United States, for votes. So how do you think they're going to fare during this election campaign on immigration?
Well, if these recent actions are any indication, they're going to do very poor. If they're already attacking Dreamers, they're passing the legislation to lift the deportation protection like DACA away from Dreamers. Or if they're right now, we have 26 states, all of them Republican, challenging the president's executive actions. These are actions that are keeping families together, American families together. So just this indication is forecasting to be a very, very bad 2016 election cycle for Republicans. And it's unfortunate because there is some Republicans who do want to be able to work on immigration reform to modernize this system. But at this point, we have a interfighting Republican Party that's really cannot get their act together, and is going to cost them not only the presidency, but Senate seats, congressional seats in 2016 and beyond.
And so tell us what some of the things are that the community and your organization is engaged in terms of countering this.
It's no extraordinary strategy. There's no fancy, consultants. It's really us just talking to the community. It's talking to our families. There is no campaign with millions of dollars that can talk to my family. Majority of my family are already U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents. they're going to listen to me more than they're going to listen to a commercial or a paper flyer from the mail. So we're just going to go connect to remind the community, our families, of who is against us and who's with us.
And who's against you and who's with you?
Well, what we're seeing now is that if Speaker Boehner keeps listening to Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, if he keeps listening to Congressman Steve King, who has called Dreamers drug mules, who has compared Latino immigrants to dogs, then it's very clear. We don't need a multi-million-dollar commercial to realize who's offending our community and who's not taking us seriously. And we have candidates who are willing to listen to us, who are willing to push the administration to take executive actions. And I'm not just talking about Democrats. I'm talking about independents, new political parties who are sick and tired of both Republicans and Democratic political infighting. So, it's for us to really move out there and say enough is enough with the political games between these two parties.
Cesar Vargas, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I know you are having a very busy day today, so I appreciate you coming on the Real News Network.
No, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.